Alright, this will be a little bit of a different video. It's not an unboxing, and this is actually not an alarm in my collection. This is one that is installed, but we were doing a battery change, and I decided that I'd just make a quick review since I don't have one of these. But this will be a overview of the Family Gard FG-200, or as they're commonly referred to, the FG-200. This is Family Gard's only smoke alarm that they still that is still sold under the Family Gard name. And yeah, these have been made for a very long time. I think I think around like 2006 is when these were starting to get produced. I'm not too sure on that. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. And then they've been making them ever since. They still make them, and they're just a cheap alarm that you can get if you don't want to spend a lot of money. So yeah, here it is. It's got this really interesting design. Kind of reminds me of a Nowcore Sears a little bit. And they do actually sell these under the BRK First Alert branding, which is interesting. And they also have an FG-250, which is a carbon monoxide variant, I believe. Which is literally just this, but instead of a smoke sensor, has a carbon monoxide sensor. Yeah, here's the back. And yeah. And this is this is like the last American smoke alarm with a hinged cover that I can think of that's still being sold. And here's the inside. It's very basic. The plastic on these are actually a lot better than I would have expected. And then the circuitry is very cheap. It uses a very similar circuitry to 83Rs, the 83Rs, except there is some differences which I'll show. It's definitely a lot. I think it's a little bit cheaper than it used to be, surprisingly. And yeah, it actually almost reminds me of a Dicon in a way, the way that the battery is hooked up. Anyhow, so now I'll explain their history. So Family Gard was first started selling alarms. Well, they first started selling alarms under the Family Gard name in around, I'd say, the late 70s, early 80s with their FG-777s, which looked like this, except it did not have a button, and it was based off of the BRK 77R, or First Alert SA76RS. And then they had their FG-777Cs, their FG-888Cs, which is what this is, which had test buttons and were based off of the 79R and the 79P. This one happens to be based off the 79P. And then after these, they replaced them with the very recognizable Family Gard FG-888D, which everyone knows. And this was the specific version that replaced it, the white button ones. And these were made for a very short period of time with the white buttons. And before they switched to a clear button and used different circuitry, which I'll get to. And then after this version, they had the very common version, well, kind of this version. They had their 83R labeled ones, FG-83Rs, which did 4.6, but had the more common circuitry, which once again I'll get to in a second. And then there was this version, which is by far, in my opinion, it's my heater. In my opinion, the most common version, the 2000s variant, which does code 3 and directly preceded these. This one specifically is from 2000, January 26th. So yeah. So I'll put all the alarms together now. So this is the oldest Family Guard I currently have. And then this. And then this. And then now it's these. And I will now show off the circuitry to see just how cheap they got. So we'll compare it with this one first. As you can see, 79R/79P circuit board, a lot larger. Actually, it's the same size as the Family Guard FG-200. It uses the older variant of the bagel horn, which has the smaller holes instead of the one large hole, and is of course tan. Now some of these, the very rare early versions, they had red banana horns. So they had 3 slots, and it was red, and there was also beige variants, and those are very rare, and those usually had tiered buttons. Actually, I'll leave that like so. And then when they moved to these, they got cheaper. As you can see, they switched to a PCB very similar to what they use now. This one has the false alarm sensor, as we call it. And then this one happens to have the same horn as this one, since this is an early one. And then after these, they had this version, which is very similar to this one. Now, the PCB is different. They actually kind of, I'd say actually kind of enlarged the PCB for the FG-200. Then this one's got the larger bagel horn with the larger hole, which this one has a similar one, but this is actually, I'd consider this to be a cheaper version because it's just cheaper quality. Then the sensor, they're identical. These are also known for falsing, just like these. They're not as prone to falsing as these ones are, but they still are known to false. And yeah. Anyhow. Alright, so, without further ado, I'll give this a test. Yep, so it does code 3. Now there are very rare, quite rare variants that were sold in Canada that actually had a 4.6 coding. And those, I believe, were made prior to 2012. So yeah, those are actually pretty neat. I'd consider those to be pretty neat. But anyhow, that was just a quick overview of the Family Guard FG-200. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.